This next question is from Taz Brown, and it's a long one, so I want to summarize what she says, and I think is a really good one. Reading her particular comment, it meant a lot to me because it made me more humble that you guys ask these great questions, you're sharing your stories, and you're asking for my advice. That means a lot. I take that very seriously though, because I know that was very rare for me. There's like a handful of people I can account for that have been good motivators for me. There's George that I mentioned at Cisco. There's probably like 2 or 3 other people. And it's very humbling to read your guys' stories, and I learn from that. And it allows me to dig deep in my brain to give the right experience, but valuable experience or recommendations that I can provide to you guys. Because I never really got that. So anyway, let's get on to Taz Brown's question here. So let me quickly summarize what she quickly said. So she's an African-American woman. She's been in the IT field for about 11 years. So she pretty much got her hands dirty. She's been in help desk and basically got into more Linux system administration. That's actually a good field to get into, by the way, if it's not networking. But she wants to get into cloud computing or become a cloud architect. So she wants to know the transition of how to get into that position as a cloud architect, engineer, that sort of thing. But she feels overwhelmed with all the technologies that are out there, the terms that are used. She feels suffocated, and she gets lost in the mix of all of these terms that are used. And sometimes can't really focus on the certifications because, again, there's so much stuff out there. So let's go ahead and talk about that further, because her story is probably something that can resonate with a lot of you guys out there at some degree, that you get into this field and there's a lot of stuff. A lot of your questions were really based on that. So let's talk about that further. So first things first, I want to get out the way. It is basically more challenging or impossible to become a cloud architect without any networking experience. And the reason for that is being a cloud architect, well, that means architecting a cloud computing solution. Now, there's the server component, but there's also the networking component. And as a network engineer for cloud computing, you're talking about building out a data center network. And these data centers, it's not just VLANs and trunking. Those are more for LAN and campus environments. For a data center, yes, there's VLANs involved, but these networks are designed in 1 or 2 ways, or maybe a mixture of both. One is more of a software-defined network environment, an SDN deployment, where your particular data center have spine and leaf switches that are basically unified and can be controlled from a centralized controller for policies and traffic forwarding. You have that. Another way is basically getting data center equipment and doing layer 2 routing like Fabric Path in the Cisco world or QFabric in the Juniper world. So that's different stuff. That's newer technologies. And if there are multiple data centers involved, then you got data center interconnects. You have OTV, you have Lisp. I even talk about VXLANs. There's a lot of moving parts there in the cloud computing world that you must have exposure to. And a lot of that you only get as a network engineer focusing with those technologies. Furthermore, being a cloud architect is not just being a network engineer and dealing with data center. There's also other data center components or options, or not really options, sub solutions. Whether it's software as a solution, platform as a solution, infrastructure as a solution. Infrastructure as a solution deals more with like VXLANs for dealing with those deployments and working with virtualized systems like VMware. It's a lot of moving parts there, okay? But also dealing with security of cloud computing solutions, which is something that is growing heavily. But also with cloud management. How do you manage the various applications or platforms or infrastructure that you have in the cloud. So that is also some other level of experience that you must also have. And before I conclude this episode, I want to circle back and officially answer Taz's question about how she can transition to a role as a cloud architect without networking experience or too much of that in the next 2 to 3 years. So the short answer is you really can't. I know of that position very well. There's a lot of heavy parts there that requires a vast amount of experience of not just networking, but again with data center technologies and protocols and services. There's system integration involved. This actually includes things like virtualization, like VMware. Okay, that's very heavy in these environments. This can also include OpenStack. Okay, that's a different conversation right there, right? And I bring that up though because you have a Linux background, so that's excellent. There's other configuration deployment tools like Chef and Puppet that are Linux based, okay? And these are used in cloud environments. I even mentioned storage, security, and management with cloud computing. The point is, it's a massive beast, but it also depends on the actual role that you're applying for. So what I would recommend is taking a different approach to get into the cloud computing arena, okay? You have a background or you are currently a Linux systems engineer. Take full advantage of that. That is a big deal, okay? And that means find cloud computing opportunities that have requirements for Linux, okay? And then from there, you can get into that field and you will, of course, bring your expertise and you'll learn about the other cloud components of software, platforms, infrastructure as a service, security management, network infrastructures, things like that. So you do all of that. And then once you're in there, then you can eventually move to other cloud areas with the other experience that you will be gaining over the years. So then eventually you will definitely reach to the area or the role as a cloud architect. So it may not take 2 to 3 years, but I know you can definitely get into I know for sure you can get into a cloud computing field with your Linux experience. That for me is a big deal. You have that. Most people don't even have that kind of experience. And I tell people, you need to have that kind of experience as a network engineer, okay? Because it's very, very valuable, very, very valuable. And you have that. So I would definitely do that for your journey to specialize with cloud computing.